Are we truly alone in the universe? Today we cover some of the scariest encounters with unidentified flying objects and possible evidence of life beyond our planet. From mysterious sightings to groundbreaking missions, today we explore possible evidence of extraterrestrial life that will blow your mind. At the time of this recording, NASA has just launched a craft the other day set to head to Jupiter's moon to discover if life exists there. On October 14th, NASA launched the Europa Clipper spacecraft on a mission to explore Jupiter's moon, Europa, which scientists believe might have conditions suitable for life. The spacecraft lifted off from Kennedy Space Center in Florida on a SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket. This mission aims to investigate Europa's subsurface ocean, hidden beneath an ice shell that could be up to 25 kilometers thick. Europa is about a quarter of the size of Earth, but it's believed to contain twice as much water as all of Earth's oceans combined. This makes it one of the most promising locations for finding potential life out in space, at least that we know of. The Europa Clipper is the largest spacecraft ever built for a planetary mission. It's about 100 feet long, equipped with 9 scientific instruments designed to measure the internal ocean and analyze the composition of the moon's surface. The spacecraft will conduct 49 close flybys of Europa starting in 2031, getting as close as 15.5 miles to the surface. So unfortunately we do have quite a while to wait before we hear anything, but the fact that NASA is actively seeking out life on a distant moon is pretty cool. Fingers crossed they find something. Just last year, NASA released a highly anticipated 36-page report on UFOs or UAPs, and there were some interesting takeaways. They looked into hundreds of sightings but concluded that they didn't find any solid evidence that aliens were behind any of them. Still, they didn't completely rule out the possibility either. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson made it clear that the agency is stepping up its game in researching these mysterious encounters. He said they'll be using better tech and artificial intelligence to dig deeper into them. The report is pretty technical, but one key takeaway is that it stated there is no reason to conclude extraterrestrial sources are responsible for these sightings. But the report also didn't deny the possibility of, quote, potential unknown alien technology operating in Earth's atmosphere. So that's pretty cool. Nicola Fox, who's part of NASA's Science Mission Directorate, said UAPs are still one of our planet's biggest mysteries. The challenge? A lot of the data they have just isn't good enough to draw any solid conclusions about what these sightings really are. To tackle this, NASA brought in a new director of UAP research, but they're keeping their identity a secret. This person will build a database to track and analyze future sightings, and using AI and machine learning. It's a smart move, especially since Dr. Daniel Evans mentioned that some members of the UAP panel had faced, quote, actual threats, which is unsettling, so keeping the new director's identity hidden is really about protecting their safety. The Falcon Lake incident began on May 20th, 1967 in Falcon Lake, Manitoba, Canada. This event has often been called Canada's best documented UFO case, and for good reason. It all started with Stephen McCallick, an industrial mechanic and amateur geologist. He was exploring the area in search of precious metals when he suddenly heard a commotion from a flock of geese, and he looked up to see 2 strange objects hovering about 150 feet away, which he described as cigarette-shaped things with humps in the middle, glowing with a reddish hue. One of the crafts then landed on a nearby rocky platform, transforming into a shiny disc that looked like, quote, hot stainless steel. McCallick sketched the craft for about a half an hour before deciding that he wanted to get a closer look. As he approached, he noticed it was completely smooth, but the craft had an open door where he could hear muffled voices. Then he reached out and touched the craft, which was so hot it melted the fingertips of his gloves. As he turned to leave, understandably, a panel then opened up, releasing a blast of heated gas that knocked him back, setting his clothes on fire. McCallick barely managed to escape, feeling nauseous and disoriented. He was so sick he was unable to eat solid food in the days following the incident, and was treated for burns that doctors said resembled radiation injuries. His story caught the attention of the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Air Force, and even US authorities. And when they reached the site that McCallick said he spotted the craft, authorities found a 15-foot ring of burnt vegetation, and there were highly radioactive elements found in soil samples and in the clothing McCallick had been wearing on the day of the encounter, which he had to rip off because they were on fire. And there was also superheated metal that had melted into the cracks of rocks, also highly radioactive. Till this day, the case has not been explained. This incident is referred to as South Africa's Roswell, the Kalahari crash. Kind of tells you how significant this one was. So the story goes that this whole incident was covered up. Some of the details of this one are a bit vague, and some chalk this up to being a hoax, but there were supposed leaked documents describing the following events. So this was an unusual event that took place over the Indian Ocean on May 7th, 1989. According to reports, a fast-moving object believed to be a UFO was spotted by naval personnel. In response, fighter jets were sent to intercept and target it. The UFO was successfully hit and crashed in the Kalahari Desert, leaving a noticeable skid mark. Shortly after the crash, a U.S. recovery team was swiftly deployed to gather evidence from the site and transport it to Patterson Air Force Base. And not only were parts of the aircraft retrieved, but the bodies of 2 alien beings as well. The Tic Tac UFO incident is one of the most compelling pieces of evidence in the world of unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs. On November 14th of 2004, retired Navy Commander David Fravor, a pilot with the USS Nimitz, had an encounter during a training exercise off the coast of Southern California. Fravor was flying with Lieutenant Commander Alex Dietrich when they were directed to investigate an unusual radar signal detected by the USS Princeton, another ship in their strike group. The radar operators had spotted, quote, multiple anomalous aerial vehicles that descended from 80,000 feet to sea level in less than a second. Fravor and Dietrich diverted to get a closer look, and as they approached, Fravor described seeing a small white object that looked almost like a Tic Tac, hovering above the ocean waves. He recalled in a 2021 interview that the object seemed to respond to their movements, as if it was aware that they were there. The Tic Tac was about the size of Fravor's jet, but had no visible markings, no wings or exhaust plumes. He attempted to cut it off, but the object accelerated away so quickly that it vanished from sight, only to be detected 60 miles away in less than a minute. Fravor stated, "I think what we experienced was well beyond the material science and the capabilities that we had at the time, that we have currently, or that we're going to have in the next 10 to 20 years. This incident came out in a report revealing over 500 sightings since 2004, some of which, including this one, are still unexplained. The 1952 Washington, D.C. UFO incident, often referred to as the Washington Flap, is one of the craziest UFO reports in history. Over 2 weekends in July of that year, people in the capital began reporting a series of strange sightings in the sky. On the night of July 19th, radar operators at Washington National Airport picked up a cluster of unknown objects flying at incredible speeds. Ground witnesses described seeing bright lights darting around erratically. The following night, the sightings continued, and the U.S. Air Force sent up fighter jets to chase the mysterious objects. Pilots in the jets reported seeing glowing lights that seemed to defy the laws of physics, making sudden accelerations and sharp turns that no conventional aircraft could replicate. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Richard French was an investigator for Project Blue Book in the 50s. In 2013, during a citizen hearing on disclosure, he told a pretty wild story. While working for Project Blue Book, his job had often just involved debunking UFO sightings, but there was one incident that he had no explanation for. French recounted an incident that happened while he was investigating off the coast of St. John's, Newfoundland. Reports had come in about 2 mysterious aircraft that supposedly crashed in the water. French followed a group of around 100 onlookers gathered on a nearby wharf. What he saw next was something he'd never be able to forget. He described encountering 2 to 3 foot tall beings that were thin and gray, seemingly working on their damaged crafts in the water. French and the onlookers watched as these strange beings repaired their vessels right before his eyes. Then the craft lifted out of the water and shot off into the sky. He never included this sighting in his official reports at the time, probably fearing he'd be laughed out of his job. The Indian Ocean has a long history of mysterious sightings, with reports of strange underwater objects dating back as far as 1873. A number of sailors have described encounters with these massive mile-wide discs lurking beneath the surface of the water, sometimes accompanied by eerie lights. One of the earliest documented sightings occurred on March 23, 1873, when the ship Adelheid was navigating the South China Sea. Crew members claimed to see this huge glowing circular object floating just below the water. And then, May 15, 1879, the crew of the HMS Vulture spotted two enormous Ferris wheel type objects spinning in opposite directions. Each spoke about 25 feet wide and spaced about 100 feet apart. On April 14, 1901, sailors aboard the SS Kilwa reported beams of light shining from an underwater disc-like object in the Persian Gulf. Then in 1943, a sailor named Matthew Mangle noticed a massive glowing disc keeping pace with his ship. Next on the list we have the Rendlesham Forest incident. This one is very well documented. It took place in December of 1980 near the Rendlesham Forest in Suffolk, England. Late at night on December 26th of 1980, military personnel witnessed strange lights descending into the forest. At first they figured it was just a downed aircraft, a known one. What they found definitely seemed to be an aircraft, just not one they'd ever seen before. They came across what seemed to be a metallic object on the forest floor and would see strange lights in the sky. Some reported that the object they saw was triangular and emitted strange beams of light. One of the airmen even claimed to have touched the object. There are official documents that have been released about this story with full reports by the military personnel at the site, and what they described was pretty strange. Now, did they actually encounter an alien spacecraft? It's debatable, but what is clear is that they saw something out of the ordinary. And finally, we have one of the most mysterious and destructive crash landings of all time, the Tunguska event. On June 30th, 1908, a massive blast hit this remote area of Russia. The event is believed to have been caused by the airburst of a large object of some kind, most likely a comet or asteroid, entering Earth's atmosphere and exploding in mid-air. The explosion released an enormous amount of energy and flattened about 80 million trees in the area. Now, luckily this happened in a very remote area, so only trees were affected, but that also means there were very few witnesses. A handful of people did report seeing a bright bluish light in the sky though, accompanied by a series of thunderous noises. And there's always been this question as to whether this was caused by a space rock or something else. Apparently there was also mutated plant life after this impact, and Joseph Stalin is rumored to have even conducted secret experiments in the area, but that's more of an urban legend.
Over the decades, eyewitnesses, military personnel, and even scientists have encountered bizarre phenomena in our skies that defy easy explanation. From early encounters that helped kick off the UFO craze to modern-day mysteries with lasting unanswered questions, each story challenges our understanding of what might be soaring above us. Today we're counting down 10 of the most bizarre UFO sightings ever recorded. First up on our list is the Kecksburg incident that occurred in 1965 in rural Pennsylvania. On one crisp autumn day, residents witnessed a fiery object streaking across the sky before crashing into the dense woods near the town of Kecksburg. Eyewitnesses described the object as acorn-shaped and made of a strange metallic material. What's even more intriguing is how quickly authorities swooped in, cordoning off the area and removing any evidence. Despite explanations ranging from a meteor to a secret military satellite, the abrupt removal of the supposed craft and conflicting witness testimonies have only deepened this mystery. The Kecksburg incident remains a highly debated event, with many convinced that it was no ordinary piece of space debris, but rather evidence of something far more extraordinary. Heading to the American Southwest, our next point centers on an encounter in Socorro, New Mexico in 1973, a case that remains one of the most credible UFO sightings ever recorded. Local police officer Lonnie Zamora reported a close encounter with a mysterious egg-shaped craft that landed briefly near his patrol route. Zamora's account is particularly compelling because he described detailed observations of the craft's structure and behavior, noting that it emitted a powerful, almost magnetic glow and left scorch marks on the ground. His report was taken very seriously simultaneously by both military investigators and UFO researchers who found that the physical evidence at the scene corroborated his story. This incident continues to be cited as one of the best documented examples of an unexplained aerial phenomenon, challenging conventional wisdom and inviting ongoing debate. In the vast expanses of Texas near Duncan, a routine drive turned into a nightmare on a warm day in 1980 for three individuals: Betty Cash, Vicki Landrum, and Colby Landrum. They encountered a diamond-shaped craft emitting intense heat and a strange, pulsating glow. As they approached, the object released a burst of energy that not only scorched the nearby ground, but also exposed them to what they described as high levels of radiation. The physical injuries and lingering health issues reported by the witnesses lent a terrifying credibility to the event. Despite extensive investigations, authorities have been unable to conclusively explain what occurred that day, leaving the Cash-Landram incident as one of the most unsettling and medically documented UFO encounters. Next, we travel to the skies over Alabama in 1948, where commercial pilots Wiley Childs and his co-pilot Whitted experienced an encounter that would soon spark widespread curiosity. While cruising at altitude, they observed a bright, saucer-like object following their aircraft, executing maneuvers that no conventional plane could match. The object darted away at impossible speeds, leaving behind a trail of questions rather than answers. Although the incident was initially brushed off as an optical illusion by some, the pilot's reputations and detailed accounts have ensured that this encounter remains a significant piece of aviation and UFO lore. Its early date and credible witnesses continue to invite debate about what the pilots really saw that day. Venturing into the rugged wilderness of Manitoba here in Canada, we encounter the infamous Falcon Lake incident of 1967. While exploring near Falcon Lake, Stephen Michalak came face to face with a glowing, cigar-shaped object that descended from the sky. As he drew near, the craft seemed to radiate an intense heat, and he later suffered unusual burns on his chest and hands, injuries that defied typical explanations. His physical evidence, including peculiar markings and radiation-like effects, has been thoroughly documented by local authorities and independent researchers. The Falcon Lake incident stands as one of the most chilling examples of direct human contact with an unknown aerial phenomenon, raising enduring questions about the nature of that encounter. In 1965, the quiet town of Exeter, New Hampshire found itself at the center of an extraordinary UFO event that involved a diverse group of witnesses. This included local police officers and everyday residents. According to multiple reports, a bright, disc-shaped object appeared in the sky and executed a series of maneuvers that defied conventional aeronautics. What set this case apart was the willingness of local law enforcement to document and investigate the sighting, lending an unusual degree of official credibility. Despite exhaustive searches and numerous interviews, no trace of the object was ever found, and its sudden disappearance only deepened the mystery. Our next case takes us back to the late 19th century in Aurora, Texas. According to local lore and sporadic newspaper reports from 1897, a mysterious object streaked across the sky and crashed in broad daylight. Witnesses claimed the impact left a smoking crater and remnants of an unusual metallic craft. While many dismiss this tale as folklore or a misinterpretation of natural events, its persistence in regional history makes it one of America's oldest UFO crash stories. Researchers note that the detailed accounts describing a loud explosion, strange noises, and even hints of an extraterrestrial design set the stage for later UFO narratives. Despite skepticism and a lack of physical evidence surviving to the present day, the Aurora incident remains an enduring mystery that continues to spark debate among UFO enthusiasts scientists, and historians. Heading to the Middle East, our next case unfolds in Tehran, Iran, in 1976. During a tense period marked by political and military uncertainties, Iranian Air Force jets were scrambled to intercept an unidentified luminous object. Pilots reported that as they approached, their instruments malfunctioned and the craft seemed to emit a dazzling light that temporarily disrupted radar and communication systems. The incident was thoroughly documented by military personnel, and the pilots' detailed testimonies described a craft that moved with agility far beyond known aircraft capabilities. Although official explanations ranged from sensor glitches to atmospheric anomalies, many experts find these responses unsatisfactory. The Tehran UFO incident remains one of the most credible and confusing cases from the region, fueling ongoing investigations into whether advanced technology or something beyond our understanding was at work that day. Our next case takes us to the remote landscapes of Montana, where in 1967, an incident at Malmstrom Air Force Base left a lasting imprint on UFO lore. During this episode, military personnel observed unexplained lights near missile silos, and reports emerged that these mysterious phenomena coincided with temporary malfunctions of nuclear missile systems. The eerie connection between the UFO sightings and the sensitive equipment on board the base has led many to speculate about the possibility of advanced non-terrestrial technology interfering with human military assets. Although official statements have at times suggested sensor errors or natural phenomena, the precise timing and detailed eyewitness accounts from trained personnel make the Malmstrom incident one of the most serious and disturbing cases in UFO history. For many, the idea that such encounters could potentially impact national security only works to deepen the mystery. In 1987, the quiet surroundings of Akita Prefecture in Japan were shadowed by an encounter that left locals both terrified and intrigued. Multiple witnesses, including local police officers and residents, reported seeing a bright metallic craft that hovered silently before accelerating out of sight. The incident was particularly striking due to the detailed descriptions provided by those on the scene. Accounts noted precise, almost military-like maneuvers that defied conventional aeronautical behavior. Japanese authorities conducted investigations, yet the official records remain inconclusive, and many aspects of the event continue to puzzle experts. The Akita UFO incident not only highlights the global nature of these unexplained phenomena, but also reinforces the idea that such encounters can occur anywhere. Quiet rural regions are not immune to witnessing the extraordinary.
From four men on a camping trip, being followed by a beam of light, all experiencing intense dreams of being experimented on by alien beings, to police officers having their whole squad cars engulfed in strange lights from the sky and forgetting huge stretches of time. These are terrifying alien abduction stories governments tried to cover up. In August of 1976, four men went on a camping trip in the Alagash Wilderness in Maine. Jack and Jim Weiner, along with Chuck Rack and Charlie Foltz, were off on what was supposed to be this peaceful getaway when things took a turn. On their second night, Jim spotted a bright object in the sky. It was there for about 30 seconds, then it disappeared. Not super out of the ordinary in the deep woods, the sky is just lit up with stars at night, easy to misidentify things, but 2 nights later, while they were out fishing, the same bright object appeared a second time. Chuck noticed it at first. It looked super intense. This time it was almost like the sun, they said, and they watched it as it followed them along the water. Charlie, thinking it was some kind of signal, even tried to flash an SOS to the object. And that's when things got really weird. They described this light shooting a beam down towards them, which followed them all the way back to shore. And when they got back to their campsite, something else was off. The fire they'd left burning was completely out, and they felt totally exhausted, like they'd been gone for hours. The next few days were uneventful, and they didn't see the light again, but after they got back home, the men started having these disturbing nightmares, often about sitting naked on a bench, feeling afraid. That night stuck with the men, but it wasn't until 1988 that they finally had had enough and decided to seek out answers. Jim reached out to UFO researcher Ray Fowler, and they all agreed to undergo hypnosis to try and make sense of these strange memories. And under this hypnosis, each man recalled being abducted by aliens. They described terrifying beings practicing medical exams on them, even having their skin and bodily fluids taken. Later, when they compared notes, they realized that their memories matched up exactly. They even passed polygraph tests. On the night of October 11th, 1973, in Pascagoula, Mississippi, two men, Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker, had a terrifying encounter they were never able to explain. While fishing off a pier by the Pascagoula River, they heard a strange whirring sound and saw flashing blue lights. Next thing they knew, an oval-shaped object about 30 to 40 feet across appeared above them. They were completely paralyzed as three bizarre creatures with robotic, slit mouths and crab-like pincers took them aboard the craft. Once inside, Hickson and Parker claimed the creatures performed some kind of examination on them. They both stayed silent for years about the details, but Hickson eventually opened up, even writing a book in 1983 about the encounter. Parker was quieter at first, but started attending UFO conventions, and in 2018, he released his own book, giving his side of the story for the first time. In 2019, the site of the abduction was marked with a plaque to honor the event, and Parker, deeply emotional, said he wanted to be buried there someday. Hickson passed away in 2011, but Parker continued to speak about the encounter until his death in 2023. Of course, some say the two made this story up, but what if they didn't? What if something actually happened to these two men that they were never able to forget? And writing it all down and sharing their story with the world was their only way of working through something that they couldn't even begin to understand. In 1979, Deputy Sheriff Val Johnson from Marshall County, Minnesota, had a strange encounter while on patrol. On the night of August 27th, around 2 a.m., he saw a beam of light just above the road near Stephen, Minnesota. The light shot toward him and engulfed his squad car. Johnson reported hearing glass breaking before losing consciousness. When he came to, 39 minutes had passed. The car's windshield was shattered, one of the headlights and the red emergency light were damaged, and the radio antenna was bent. When backup deputies arrived, they found Johnson's squad car sideways on the road. He had bruises and eye irritation, which a doctor later compared to burns from a welder's torch. When Johnson's story came out, it gained a lot of attention. All it did was make matters worse, though. Johnson would later say it, understandably, caused a lot of emotional distress for him and his family. Till this day, nobody knows exactly what happened that night, but part of me wonders if he just got into a car accident and was too embarrassed to admit it. Not to ruin the party or anything, but I don't know. What do you all think of this one? This next one is really weird, so strap in. So in 1957, a Brazilian farmer named Antonio Villas Boas had one of the craziest nights of his life. On October 15th, while working late in the fields, he spotted this bright red star-like object in the sky. The object came down, eventually landing. It was an egg-shaped craft, and from it came these humanoid figures. They were about 5 feet tall with small blue eyes and white hair, and they were dressed in what looked like these gray overalls or equipment, and they had these helmets on. Before he knew it, Antonio was grabbed and taken aboard the craft. Once inside, the aliens took samples of his bodily fluids and performed a whole series of other medical examinations. Then they led him into another room, where he was introduced to a female humanoid, according to him, a very attractive one. He described her as having small round eyes, white hair, and a human-like appearance. And after some strange interactions, well, you can guess what happened next. And once the bizarre encounter was over, the craft released him back into the field and took off. Antonio, understandably shaken, eventually told his family about it. Not sure how that conversation would have gone, but I'm gonna assume it was awkward. His story soon caught the attention of the Brazilian military and the media. People had a lot of questions. Some thought his story was incredible. Some just laughed him off. But Antonio stuck by his story all the way up until his death in 1991. On September 3rd of 1965, 18-year-old Norman Uscarello was hitchhiking home along Route 150 in New Hampshire. Around 2 a.m., he saw 5 bright red lights hovering above the trees. At first he thought they were police or fire lights, but when he got closer he realized the lights were coming from a massive object around 80 to 90 feet wide, but somehow was completely silent. Panicking, he drove into a ditch and watched in horror as this object started moving toward him, before changing direction and hovering over a nearby farmhouse. Norman ran to a neighbor's house for help, but he got no response. Eventually he flagged down a car and was driven to the local police station, where he told Officer Reginald Toland about what he saw. Toland was already familiar with Muscarello and he took him seriously. He radioed Officer Eugene Bertrand to investigate, and when they went back to the sighting location, the object did appear again, hovering silently and rocking back and forth. The officers just stood there completely stunned, not knowing what to do, before the thing disappeared. After the police reported the incident, the Air Force investigated, but their helpful explanation was that it was just stars or a military exercise. Muscarello and the officers weren't so convinced, nor are a lot of people who've heard about the story in the years since. In 1961, Betty and Barney Hill, a couple from New Hampshire, became one of the most famous cases of alien abduction. After a vacation, they were driving home when they noticed this strange light in the sky. At first, Betty thought it was a falling star, but it moved erratically and it was getting larger and brighter. Eventually, Barney decided to just pull over so they could take a look. As they watched, Betty saw some sort of craft with multicolored lights moving across the moon. They continued to stare for a while, but what happened next nearly gave them a heart attack. Suddenly, the craft dropped down toward their car and just hovered above it. Barney stepped out and, using binoculars, he looked up to see a bunch of what he said were humanoid figures inside this craft. One figure seemed to communicate with him telepathically, warning him to stay where he was. Terrified, Barney ran back to the car and the couple just sped off. As they drove away, they heard a strange beeping sound, and then they lost track of time, suddenly finding themselves near Concord hours later than they'd expected. When they got home, they noticed other odd things too. Their clothes were damaged, their watches had stopped working, and there was a strange pink powder on Betty's dress. The Hills couldn't explain what had happened, and both underwent hypnosis sessions later on, which revealed eerie, consistent memories of alien abduction. On December 1st, 1987, a retired police officer known only as Spencer to the press was out for a walk in Ilkley Moor in England. While climbing a small hill, he saw a strange figure ahead of him, about 4 feet tall, dark green, with an oversized head and long, thin arms. The figure made a gesture that seemed to warn Spencer to stay back, but instead he took out his camera and he snapped a photo. The creature then ran off. Spencer followed but lost track of it in the fog. That's when Spencer saw a craft rise from the moor. He said it had 2 saucer-shaped parts stacked on top of each other, and that it hummed loudly as it disappeared into the sky. At this point, Spencer decided that his walk was over and he started heading to town, only to realize he was hours later than he should have been. His compass was also pointing in the wrong direction. In the days that followed, Spencer reached out to UFO researchers Jenny Randles and Peter Howe. The photograph Spencer took was examined by experts, and while it couldn't be proven to be fake, it was also too grainy for any real conclusion either. According to UFOologist Nick Redfern, Spencer was also visited by 2 men in black who apparently intimidated him into staying silent. On the night of August 21st, 1955, in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, a bizarre incident took place that has gone down as one of the craziest cryptid reports of all time, at least that I've read about. A group of 12 people who'd been staying at their small family farm rushed to the local police station saying that they had been under attack by small, alien-looking creatures. They claimed these creatures were about 3 to 4 feet tall and were peeking into their farmhouse windows and doorways, and that they'd been fighting them off for hours. And this all happened after they saw some weird light descend into the trees by the farmhouse. So 2 adults, Elmer Sutton and Billy Ray Taylor, described seeing short, dark figures popping up and even tried to hold them off with gunfire. Soon police, state troopers, and military personnel from nearby Fort Campbell showed up to investigate. What they found were signs of gunfire and holes in the farmhouse's windows and door screens, but no sign of any creatures. The following day, the family packed up and they left the farmhouse. The mysterious creatures were never seen again. November of 1979, Robert Taylor, a forestry worker from Scotland, had an encounter that left him badly shaken and injured. Taylor had gone for a walk near Dutchmont Law, a wooded area in Livingston. when he'd claimed to see a strange flying dome. He described the object as a large metallic sphere about 7 yards in diameter, hovering above the ground. It also had a rough sandpaper-like texture and small propellers on its rim. According to Taylor, the thing sprouted smaller spheres, which he compared to sea mines, that started dragging him toward the larger object. Then, everything went black. When he came to, the strange craft and smaller objects were gone. Taylor tried to start his truck, but it wasn't working, so he walked home. When he got home, his wife was in shock. Taylor was disheveled, his clothes were torn, and he had grazes on his chin and thighs. The police were called, and after examining the site, they found odd marks in the ground, which Taylor said were caused by these strange objects. Finally, in November of 1980, Alan Godfrey, a police constable in West Yorkshire, was responding to reports of cattle roaming a council estate when he saw this strange diamond-shaped light hovering above the road. It was about 20 feet high and 14 feet wide, rotating slowly. He tried to radio for backup, but his equipment suddenly wasn't working. And then, just like that, the object vanished. Godfrey found himself 30 yards down the road. He was unable to explain where the last 30 minutes had gone. He also had a split boot and a strange red mark on his foot. Later, under hypnosis, Godfrey recalled being hit by a beam of light, causing him to lose consciousness. He remembered then waking up inside a room being examined by small, non-human beings and a more humanoid figure. Godfrey would later say it was possible the whole thing was a dream, but at the time, he felt very strongly that what he experienced was real. He also thought the experience led to his early retirement from the police force.
Perhaps the reason we haven't found signs of life beyond Earth is because we really just don't know what we're looking for. For so long, we have looked for life in space within the parameters of what constitutes life to us: DNA, RNA, and nucleic acids. But there is a theory, the different kind of life theory, that states this is the reason why we haven't been successful in our search, because life outside of Earth does not need any of the things that we do to survive. Their cells get instructions in biochemical ways completely different from our own. Going off of this, one can assume that planets previously deemed as uninhabitable and therefore removed from the search area for extraterrestrial life might actually be the exact place where alien life forms could be found. The statement that only 1 in a million planets have the right combination of chemicals, temperature, water, days, and nights to support planetary life as we know it completely discounts planetary life as we don't. Extraterrestrials who operate on an incredibly different fundamental and chemical level than our own might be lurking right in our cosmic backyard, we just haven't been searching for them properly. The Faraway Theory is a pretty straightforward one. The reason we have yet to find aliens is because they are too far away and moving further away by the minute. Basically, the theory states that due to the expansion of the universe, galaxies are constantly moving further and further away from one another, and the further they become, the faster they move, which means it's highly likely that we miss that sweet spot of alien interaction due to the fact that our society was just too underdeveloped when aliens inhabited galaxies that were close enough to communicate with. Either that or humanity didn't miss it, but we did, because it already happened some 6,000 years ago, which would explain the pyramids and many ancient civilizations' fascinations with the stars. Either way, we're SOL for distance. But maybe we haven't found aliens yet because we haven't been communicating properly. Here's the thing. For the better half of a century, humanity has been leaking radio signals into space at such a rate that any intelligent life form within 100 light years of Earth would surely be able to pick up the signal. But as tech improves, these radio leaks reduce, and one day they might disappear altogether, and the Earth might fall back into radio silence. Perhaps the same is the case for other planets, and the reason we haven't been able to hear their radio signals and they haven't heard any of ours is simply because in the cosmic scope of time, the radio signals just don't last that long and our timing is off. In 1974, however, humanity did make a direct direct attempt at communicating with aliens by beaming an interstellar message out towards a globular cluster 25,000 light years away. The only problem is that for anyone to receive the message, they would have to be situated directly in the path of the beam. Not only that, but the message took less than 3 minutes to transit, meaning even if an intelligent extraterrestrial civilization was perfectly situated in the path, they would have had less than 3 minutes to detect the signal. While it seems unlikely, it is possible that in 1977 we got lucky enough to detect a beam coming from an advanced extraterrestrial civilization down to Earth. A momentary burst of energy known as the WOW signal swept across the planet, but we have not been able to figure out its origin or been able to detect it since we heard it the first time. In 2012, however, we did send back a response, but we have yet to hear back from whoever sent the WOW signal. Perhaps, though, the reason we have yet to interact with intelligent life forms is because the universe has filtered them out, and one day it will filter us out too. Basically, what I'm saying is that humanity and all other life forms have an expiry date that is pre-wired into our experience and that prohibits us from ever reaching the point of extraterrestrial communications and other planetary colonizations. Why? I'm not sure, but I'm assuming it's to protect the universe somehow. I mean, let's think about it. Let's say right now is the perfect time for life to exist on Earth, and one day, long after we're gone, it will be the perfect time for life to exist on, say, Venus. If we had already found a way to migrate to Venus and subsequently developed it to our liking and then polluted it beyond repair, the life that was supposed to exist there after we had moved on to the next planet would have zero chance at survival. So maybe the expiration date encoded into each and every living being across the universe is to allow each and every being to have its moment in time to exist. Branching off of that theory, the Great Filter Theory, we have the self-destruction theory, which is similar but just a bit different because instead of the universe giving us an expiration date pre-coded into our existence, self-destruction theory states that life on every planet is destined to kill itself in order to protect the planet itself rather than the universe as a whole. Like I said, the theories are really similar, but one is a universal law and one is planetary preservation. Self-destruction theory comes from the Medea hypothesis, which is based off Medea from Greek mythology, who killed her offspring. Basically, our planet is Medea and we are the offspring. The very thing that gave us life is destined to kill us as we take away its own life force. An example of this is the Ice Ages, which those who follow the self-destruction theory would blame on an excess of plants, which absorbed an excess amount of CO2, which led to extreme global cooling, greatly damaging the integrity of life on Earth. Now we've come in. We've killed off a bunch of plants, we've warmed the Earth up, but we warmed it up too much, and we've killed off a bunch of other living things. And this, once again, has greatly damaged the integrity of life on Earth, meaning that at some point in time before we are able to achieve an intelligence level that allows us to communicate and commute to these aliens, something is bound to come in and kill off humanity. Do you see what I'm saying? Another theory, however, states that Earth is actually the birthplace of all life, all aliens. It's the incubation theory that, to put it quite simply, states that Earth is an incubation ground for all life in our universe, and that once a civilization reaches a point of high enough intelligence, they leave to colonize other planets. If this is true, it makes sense why aliens who have gone through the same process wouldn't want to interfere with our own. This is our chance to prove to the rest of the universe that we are not the runts of the litter, but that we have the capabilities to evolve into a species that can branch out into the universe on our own. The same way people who make documentaries about nature aren't supposed to step in when a lion tries to eat a gazelle, there is an unspoken rule that prohibits aliens from interfering with our development until we have reached that final stage. And then of course there is zoo theory, which is similar to incubation theory in that aliens have decided not to interfere with our existence, but different in that zoo theory does not follow the notion that all life in the universe began and evolved on Earth. What's neat, or perhaps terrifying, about zoo theory is that it covers the idea that while we have not yet been able to observe extraterrestrial life forms ourselves, they have certainly been able to observe us, and they've been doing it for centuries. If this really is the case, I wonder if Earth is the entire zoo, or just one of many exhibits in a giant cosmic roadside attraction called the Milky Way. It's anyone's guess, really. Now, much like how in order to communicate with aliens via signal beam, we would have to send our communications to the exact right spot at the exact right time, the reason why we haven't seen aliens could just be a timing issue. It's entirely possible that aliens existed long before our current time. Maybe they were around for the beginning of humanity, and maybe they even visited Earth early on in order to aid with some architectural projects like the pyramids and Stonehenge, but now they're gone. Extinct, dunzo, we missed them, and they're not coming back. I feel like this theory makes a fair bit of sense when you consider the references made in ancient texts to godly humanoid figures that are now, for some reason, nowhere to be found. Perhaps extraterrestrial life forms knew they were dying out and stopped on Earth to keep their existence from becoming nothing but stardust. On the other hand, of course, perhaps we aren't late, but we're early. According to Abraham Leob of Harvard and Raphael Batista and David Salone of the University of Oxford, the chances of life on other planets is actually set to grow much higher in the distant future. I mean, life on Earth developed 30 million years after the Big Bang, and it's still in the early stages. So who's to say that in another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 million years, the galaxy won't be teeming with various intelligent life forms spread out across the cosmos? I mean, it makes sense, but so do the rest of these theories. Anyways, the likelihood of us being alone in this universe is slim, but the likelihood that we are lone intelligent beings in this universe, because the rest of life is still in single-celled stage 1, is much more probable. The dark forest hypothesis is another possible reason for our lack of alien communication. Basically, the hypothesis states that the reason we have not yet crossed paths with any other life form is due to a drive towards self-preservation and a fear of being destroyed by another hostile, undetected civilization. I mean, to be fair, if I were part of a peaceful, albeit guarded, civilization making my way through the cosmos, and I stumbled upon humanity, I would 100% be absolutely terrified. We're scary, there's no denying it. Don't even try. And what if there is another civilization out there even scarier than us? I don't want us to be looking in the wrong cosmic corner one day and accidentally run into our doom. Like, you wouldn't go looking into the corners of a dark forest to figure out what's lurking there that could possibly kill you, so why are we doing it in our universe? Furthermore, it's likely that out of this sphere, extraterrestrial species are not only not looking for us, but also actively working against being found. But then again, on the other hand, maybe aliens don't exist and we really are alone, floating through the vastness of space, inching closer and closer to our impending doom that will one day come in the form of a massive quasar swallowing our galaxy whole. Who knows?
A UAP was just captured in the skies over New Jersey, looking to have warped from one position to the other in an instant. Just weeks before, a mysterious object readjusted the clock in a family's car. Strange lights were also seen over Queens and Georgia, all in the past month. These are bizarre UFO sightings that might just prove aliens are watching us. A strange UFO sighting was captured over New Jersey recently. In a 13-second clip shot near Atlantic City on a Sunday night back in December, a strange white light blinks in the sky before suddenly vanishing. Family members who were watching the light in the sky were completely baffled by what they were looking at. The thing just kind of hovers in the sky, slightly flickering before it looks like it disappears. Turns out that's not exactly the case. A man named Tim Janicki, who received the footage from a friend, posted it online with the heading reading, "I don't trust random videos I see on X, but this is 100% real." So this video has been getting shared around quite a bit. One commenter pointed out, "You can see it didn't just disappear, but it took off with incredible speed. There's a small flash of light to the left as it leaves. Humans can't produce the energy required to go that fast, especially from standstill." And that's true. If you look closely, you do see this really quick blip of light appear in the upper left of the screen right after the strange orb of light looks like it vanishes. Other people commented similar things, like one person saying, "No flight system we have right now can go from stationary to warp drive in an instant. These flight characteristics are are well beyond light years ahead of us. Now, this is just one incident in a long list of strange sightings in the sky over New Jersey, which led the FAA to briefly limit drone flights in some areas. The FBI and other federal agencies have been looking into a bunch of the reports apparently, and they claim that so far they haven't found anything pointing to a national security threat. Again, so they say. This footage here was posted to Reddit by user YogurtClosetFlat5701 just a couple weeks ago with the caption, "This just happened above Brookville Boulevard, Snake Road in Queens, New York, right next to JFK Airport. We looked up and there were 4 orange orbs in formation in what is supposed to be a no-fly zone. They then started to disappear. Did anybody else in the area witness this?" End of post. And that's a good question. Any New Yorkers in the comments see this as well? Let us know down in the comments here. There are some interesting comments from other witnesses on the post though. One user, Zora Octavia, wrote, "Lived here for 14 years with planes flying by all day, every day. They fly so low it feels like you can almost touch them. I know what they look like when they come into land and take off. I have never seen anything like this. Ever." And that's not the only strange orange orb that's been spotted in the sky recently. On December 26th, a Redditor by the name of HellFollowed84 posted this footage. The video was shot in central Georgia. A father had gone to take out the trash when he spotted the strange orb in the sky. He noticed something, quote, bright and orange overhead through the pines. He pointed it out to his son and they both just stared at it for several minutes before deciding to film it. The father shared the video on Reddit. In the clip we see this glowing orange orb gliding across the sky, weaving between the tops of pine trees. At one point, the orb looks like it dims and then vanishes entirely. As HellFollowed84 wrote, "When I first observed it, the light was huge, but it was way off, like half a mile. As it got closer, it seemed to dim but stayed the same luminous lighting. As I walked further to capture it, I thought, what if it was trying to evade me?" A bunch of Redditors wondered if it could be a plane, but the user didn't think so, saying it made no sound, unlike the planes that frequently fly over his home. And we're back to New Jersey with another set of strange lights in the sky captured on camera recently. A YouTuber named CJ Faison recently posted footage showing what he believes are drones flying in, quote, deliberate formations off the coast of New Jersey over the Atlantic Ocean. He took a boat 26 miles out from the Pine Barrens to get the footage using a night vision camera. In the video, he'd gone out to get footage of the mysterious drones that people have been spotting in the skies over the last couple months. He did manage to capture a bunch of these blinking lights in the sky. Some are stationary, some are seen moving through the sky, some appear and disappear completely, and some of the drones seem to zip across the horizon at incredible speeds. It is definitely odd. CJ wrote in the video description, "The drones in New Jersey have been seen coming from the ocean for several weeks. We found UAP drones in the middle of the ocean 100%. This is something they don't want you to see." Now, sure, people have access to drones nowadays. There are more things in the sky than there ever have been in history, but it seems like people are spotting particularly bright, rather large objects moving at speeds way too fast to be your over-the-counter drone. And again, the FBI is getting involved. They've investigated around 5,000 reports about these drones, claiming that about 100 of them are considered credible. As of now, there have been no clear answers from authorities on who's behind the drones or what they're up to. This next report comes out again from New Jersey. This time it's not just lights in the sky though. Whatever this object was, it actually affected the clock in a family's car. In early December, a family reported a strange effect while following one of these strange crafts that people have been seeing in the sky. As they drove along, the car's clock suddenly changed time, then went back to normal once they drove away. Local law enforcement in Morris County insists that there's no known threat to public safety, but residents are still trying to figure out what's going on themselves. There's even a Facebook group with over 17,000 members exchanging info on these sightings. One local software engineer, Rich Tunguska, thinks the clock change might be a clue. He commented, "Many newer cars get their clock time from GPS satellites," adding that the drones could be using GPS jamming or spoofing. He went on to say that if these drones are using, quote, GPS jamming, then it's plausible the car would follow the signal and change the clock. FAA contractor David Lombardo agreed, saying these drones likely have electronic interference capability. base. A strange UAP was captured on camera back in 2018, but the video was kept secret for years. It was just released to the public last year in January of 2024. The object was spotted flying over a US military base in Iraq and was tracked by a military infrared radar. It moved across the base before making a controlled descent into a body of water. About 17 minutes later, it reappeared and took off at an incredible speed. The Pentagon has officially classified it as a UAP. What caught a lot of attention was how quickly the object changed color. You'll notice that the object keeps switching from this semi-translucent look to black. And since the video was shot using infrared, the color changes indicate shifts in temperature. The object was changing temperature so fast that it actually made it difficult for the radar to even track. And according to Dr. Matthew Sadagas, a physics professor at the University of Albany, it was doing this, quote, faster than any known object. This next video comes from the YouTube channel Plant Abundance, who wrote in the description that he'd been outside doing some tree work when this bright object caught his eye. He watched it as it stayed stationary for about a minute and a half before fetching his camera. He caught the tail end of it before it drifted downward and faded out. Again, this is another recent clip posted on October 14th of 2024. Now the object is hard to make out. It's obviously pretty high up, but zooming in, it's definitely not a plane or a satellite. It doesn't even look like your typical drone. It looks like a spherical metallic object. So what is it? I don't know. What do you all think? This footage was taken a few years ago. It's another spherical flying orb. The AARO, the office within the US Department of Defense that handles UAPs, released the footage captured by an MQ-9 Reaper drone during a Senate hearing in the Middle East. The video shows an orb smoothly flying through the sky at a high speed. The AARO came out saying that they had no idea what it was, calling it a genuine UAP, but they also mentioned it was not the first time they'd seen something like it. On December 16th of 2024, tourists at Disney World in Orlando caught sight of a glowing red UFO streaking upward in the night sky. The object kinda looks like a falling star, but in reverse. The video made the rounds on TikTok with people commenting it was a UAP of extraterrestrial origin. Now, unlike a lot of the other stuff on this list, this one may have a very clear explanation, and while that explanation probably isn't aliens, it's still pretty cool. The glowing streak was probably a SpaceX rocket that launched that night. Falcon 9's reusable booster successfully landed in the Atlantic after 8.5 minutes. SpaceX was transporting a GPS satellite for the US military. There was a similar sighting near Disney on December 23rd, also very likely a SpaceX mission. So this final story comes from a new docu-series called Investigation Alien. Footage was captured showing a strange object descending into the English Channel. The series follows journalist George Knapp and his team, including underwater archaeologist Rory Kremer, as they dig into evidence of extraterrestrial life. During one of their expeditions off the coast of Normandy, they spotted an illuminated object about 200 yards away. At first, it was stationary, but then it sped off, only to return later. But at that point, most of the crew was asleep. Kremer, though, was on night watch, and he was able to capture the object on camera as it plummeted into the water. Knapp was shocked when he saw the footage. He returned Kremer for an explanation, and Kremer, who's been in the field for over 20 years, admitted, "I don't got any answers, do you?" He thought it might be a flare, but it didn't have the typical smoke. As the object disappeared into the water, Knapp suggested it could be tied to some sort of subterranean base. Kremer pointed out that local tribes in the region have long reported unexplained lights, which were often linked to gods. They both agreed that the footage could be evidence of something much bigger lurking beneath the surface. Now, is this story legit or just a clever way of promoting the series? That's for you to decide. But based on everything on this list, could very well be aliens.
What is it? Ah, what the heck? Have you seen that? Oh my god! Oh my gosh! Wow! That's an alien!
Two mysterious UAPs completely unaffected by missiles, a fleet of drones hovering over an Air Force base for 17 straight days. With the recent UAP hearing at Washington, DC, UFOs are on everyone's minds. So these are secret military bases concealing alien evidence you won't believe. Now, it just wouldn't be right not to talk a bit about this recent congressional hearing on UAPs. Now, obviously, there was no physical evidence presented here, but there were some very interesting statements made by these men who were testifying under oath.
As such, I appreciate the need to protect certain sensitive intelligence and military information. I consider my oath to protect secrets as sacred, and I will always put the safety of the American people first.
The hearing, titled Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, Exposing the Truth, took place just last week, and there were 4 key experts, each with their own claims about the US government's involvement with UAPs, or Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. Luis Elizondo, a former Pentagon official who ran a secret program studying UAPs, was on the panel. When Rep. Nancy Mace asked him directly if the US government had been involved in, quote, UAP crash retrieval programs, Elizondo didn't hesitate, responding yes. She followed up asking if these programs were aimed at identifying and reverse engineering alien craft. Elizondo's reply was again straightforward: yes. Elizondo also made it clear that the US isn't alone in this, stating advanced technologies not made by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe, end quote. So yeah, just who or what is behind these highly advanced technologies? Deep in the Nevada desert, there's a mysterious site that many believe holds some of the biggest secrets the US government doesn't want you to know about. S4. This is rumored to be a secretive military facility located near the infamous Area 51, and according to some whistleblowers, it's where alien technology is being stored, studied, and even reverse engineered. One of the most famous sources of info about S4 is, of course, Bob Lazar, a self-proclaimed physicist who claimed he worked at the base in the late 80s. Lazar said that his job at S4 was to reverse engineer extraterrestrial spacecraft, and he described seeing flying saucers with anti-gravity technology, and even said he had personally worked on one of these craft. In his interviews, Lazar gave detailed descriptions of the facility, including the idea that S4 was built into a mountain to remain hidden, and according to him, the base was divided into several hangars, each containing different alien ships, some of which were allegedly in working condition. On the night of March 24, 1967, Lieutenant Robert Salas was stationed deep underground at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana, overseeing a squadron of 10 nuclear missiles, but his missiles had just mysteriously lost power across the entire facility without warning. You would have to have sent individual signals to each missile, and within seconds we had no power, Salas said, adding that it was something the US military had no technology to counter at the time. The other odd part, moments before the malfunction, a security officer stationed on the surface had been calling Salas frantically. The officer described seeing a glowing, pulsating UFO, an oval-shaped craft with red-orange lights, flying in ways no human-made vehicle could. The object performed, quote, unusual controlled maneuvers, such as flying very fast, coming to a dead stop, then reversing course, and making 90-degree turns. After the UFO left, the officer was shaken, and a special investigations officer immediately told Salas never to speak of it. Just last year, in December of 2023, something bizarre happened over Langley Air Force Base in Virginia. For 17 straight nights, a fleet of mysterious drones appeared in the sky just after sunset and flew over restricted military airspace. According to former Air Force General Mark Kelly, the drones looked like constellations in the night sky, with the first one he saw being around 20 feet long, flying at speeds of over 100 kilometers per hour and cruising at 3,000 to 4,000 feet. The drones followed a precise pattern each night. The Pentagon investigated, suspecting they could have belonged to foreign agents, possibly from China or Russia, trying to spy on US military, but the drones didn't seem to pose an immediate threat, so the military couldn't just shoot them down. They were fearing risking, troops and civilians' lives. So they brainstormed for a bit, and they figured they could capture them with nets or find a way to jam their signals, but nothing seemed to work. Alright, so there's this amazing video from an Afghanistan military base that's been circulating online the past couple days. In the footage, a swarm of UFOs is seen hovering outside the base, and they're completely unaffected by a missile. The video starts with a view of the flat land around the base before the camera zooms in on the distant mountains. There, 4 black dots are seen floating in the sky, and at first they might just seem like flares or training targets, but as the camera gets closer, the orbs appear to be leaking some kind of fuel or liquid beneath them. Then, out of nowhere, a short-range missile shoots across the screen and hits 2 of the orbs directly, and you'd expect them to be obliterated, but no. As the debris disperses, the orbs are completely unharmed. As the video goes on, the camera switches from infrared to normal vision, revealing something even stranger. The orbs are glowing in bright pink, orange, purple, and yellow hues, moving together in perfect synchronization. They seem to be floating in a deliberate, almost purposeful way, totally defying what we understand about physics and flight. So, what were these things? At this point, we still have no idea. Pine Gap, located in the remote outback of Australia, is officially a joint US-Australian facility used for signals intelligence, surveillance, and satellite tracking, but that's just on the surface. Beneath its top-secret operations, some believe it's hiding something far more otherworldly. Some claim that there is an underground section of Pine Gap that's specifically used to store and study extraterrestrial artifacts, including crashed UFOs or UAPs, and it's also said to track them across the southern hemisphere, with a bunch of reports from locals and military personnel describing strange lights and unidentified craft flying over the facility. It's an Air Force station used for communications and intelligence support for both the UK and the United States. Menwith Hill is known to be involved in some of the most sensitive surveillance activities, intercepting global communications, which is already shady enough. But the weirdness doesn't stop here. What actually goes on inside here is top secret, and this, along with the fact that locals have reported strange stuff going on around the base, like unusual lights in the sky, unidentified flying objects zipping past the radar domes, it makes it one of the most mysterious places in the country. And some people think this place is involved in tracking UFOs and extraterrestrial activity. Some even claim the US government uses the base to store alien technology recovered from crashes. And with the base being so remote and so heavily guarded, it would make for a perfect place to hide whatever evidence might be there. Kirtland Air Force Base, just outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico, handles everything from aircraft maintenance to nuclear weapons storage, but for years, it's been associated with unexplained aerial phenomena. Strange lights in the sky and unidentified craft have been reported near the base, but what really feeds the conspiracy theories is Kirtland's role in nuclear weapons. The base stores nuclear warheads, and some believe that UFOs are drawn here because of it, possibly monitoring or interacting with the weapons. One of the most popular stories surrounding Kirtland is its connection to the 1947 Roswell incident. Many believe that the base may have been involved in retrieving the wreckage from the famous UFO crash, with the debris possibly being stored or studied there. There's also the fact that Kirtland is home to the Sandia National Laboratories, which works on advanced weapons and defense technology. Loring Air Force Base in northern Maine might not be on everyone's radar, but it's definitely caught the attention of folks who are into UFOs. The base was decommissioned in 1994, but was home to nuclear weapons and played a key role during the Cold War. During its 40 years of operation, though, there were some strange reports of UFO sightings in the area. The Loring UFO incident was a series of sightings in the 70s where military personnel reportedly saw unidentified objects near the base. According to some reports, the objects seemed to be interacting with the base's radar systems, even jamming them at times. Some believe the military may have been studying alien tech or even trying to make contact. And even though the base has been inactive for years, stories about strange activity around Loring are still reported to this day. Mount Shasta in Northern California is a mountain, not a military base. So why is it on this list? Well, because there's always been this conspiracy theory about a hidden base inside it. Some say it's not even a government-run base at all, but an extraterrestrial one. Reports of strange lights around Mount Shasta go back as far as the 40s, with people claiming to see UFOs flying near or above the mountain. And some say these craft even seem to enter the mountain itself. Has NASA been hiding something? From bizarre rock formations on the Red Planet that some believe hint at alien civilizations, to the strange Black Knight satellite that's been orbiting Earth for thousands of years. NASA's track record with unexplained phenomena raises a lot of questions. When it comes to UFOs, the space agency's we don't know approach leaves us wondering, are they really in the dark, or is there more they're not telling us? These are NASA's most disturbing secrets about alien life. Mars is one of those planets that just won't stop teasing us. Between all the rover missions and satellite images, NASA's gotten a ton of data about the red planet, and yeah, some of it's pretty bizarre. Over the years, there have been some oddities people have pointed out, and some of them have even led to conspiracy theories about NASA possibly trying to cover stuff up. People have pointed out odd rock formations that kinda look like pyramids, or maybe even the ruins of a full-on city. If you ask NASA, these are just natural geological formations, but some think the space agency is just downplaying it all. So what if NASA really did find evidence of past alien civilizations on Mars? Why would they keep something like that a secret? Well, some think they're covering it up to keep control over the situation, to prevent mass hysteria. Could Mars be home to some kind of extraterrestrial life? Possibly even intelligent life? Hidden away in some secret location that's never been shown? We might just be scratching the surface with all those photos. Maybe there's more to the story that NASA's not letting on. This one's really weird. So the Black Knight satellite is an alleged alien spacecraft that's been orbiting Earth for thousands of years. Some people believe NASA knows exactly what it is, but has kept quiet about it. The conspiracy really took off in 1954, when Donald Kehoe, an American Marine Corps naval aviator, told the paper that the US Air Force had reported that 2 satellites orbiting Earth had been detected. At that time, no country had the technology to launch a satellite. But the Black Knight satellite story never went away, and it became a full-on alien cover-up conspiracy. The object is described as this artificial satellite, possibly of extraterrestrial origin, flying in orbit observing us. NASA has denied all knowledge of it, but some people point to radio signals picked up by satellites and astronauts' accounts of strange unidentified objects in space as proof that the Black Knight satellite is real. If there really is something floating around up there though, it could mean we've been under alien surveillance for a very long time, possibly tens of thousands of years. NASA's relationship with the UFOs is kind of this awkward, unspoken thing. For years, astronauts and scientists have reported seeing unexplained objects while in space. Some UFOs even make an appearance in official records, like when Apollo 11 astronauts reported seeing a flying saucer during their mission to the moon. NASA has always maintained a pretty grounded scientific approach when it comes to UFOs, saying things like we don't know what they could be, but we're studying them. They never provide any solid answers though, and maybe they just really don't have any, but that's not what some people think, including some who have been to space themselves. Astronauts like Edgar Mitchell, for example, the 6th person to ever set foot on the moon. Up until his death in 2016, he was pretty vocal about his belief that UFOs and aliens were real, and that NASA knew much more than they were letting on. So what is the deal here? Are they keeping secrets about extraterrestrial visits? Do they actually not have any idea what they could be, despite all the eyes they have on the sky? What do you think? Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, is a real hotspot when it comes to the possibility of alien life. NASA spent a lot of time talking about Europa because there's something under that icy surface, an ocean that could possibly be home to life. It's an exciting idea, but as of right now, we don't really know what's down there. Or do we? Some researchers believe NASA knows much more than they've let on. Europa's ocean is considered one of the most promising places to find life beyond Earth, so why is NASA so quiet about it? Could it be they've already discovered something under the ice? Some conspiracy theorists think NASA has already found signs of alien life in Europa's oceans, but they're keeping it under wraps. The whole situation is a bit fishy to some, especially with all the secrecy and the fact that missions to Europa keep getting delayed or altered. Could NASA be sitting on a major discovery, just waiting for the right moment to drop it? In 2017, the Pentagon confirmed it had been running a secret UFO program known as AATIP, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. The revelation caught a lot of people off guard, but NASA was likely involved, at least behind the scenes. AATIP's goal was to investigate unidentified flying objects and other unusual aerial phenomena, and some believe NASA was consulted about these findings. So what do they know? Well, NASA's remained pretty tight-lipped about their role, which has only added to people's suspicions that they're hiding more than just a few UFO reports. If the government was running a secret program to investigate UFOs, it's hard to believe NASA wasn't involved in some capacity. Did they find something in those programs that could change our entire understanding of alien life? Kepler, NASA's exoplanet hunting telescope, got a lot of people talking when it discovered thousands of potential planets outside our solar system. But that's not all. Some scientists believe Kepler has picked up signals that could be coming from extraterrestrial civilizations. If this is the case, well, the question is, are they coming from aliens intentionally trying to communicate? Well, who knows? NASA has downplayed these things, labeling the signals as noise or interference from natural sources, but others aren't convinced. They think NASA's purposely brushing aside these signals to keep the truth about alien life hidden from the public. Maybe they just don't want us to know that we're not alone in the universe just yet, still trying to figure out how to approach the situation. Even though they're the only people to ever go to space, astronauts are kind of the last people you expect to say they've had encounters with UFOs. I don't know what it is, but there is a surprising number of reports from space missions that do suggest otherwise. Gordon Cooper, one of NASA's original astronauts, claimed to have seen a UFO during the Mercury Atlas 9 mission in 1963. He reported a glowing object that seemed to follow his spacecraft before quickly disappearing. Cooper said the craft defied our understanding of physics, that it was far beyond the capabilities of any known technology at the time. He also said there was footage of this thing that was never made public. Then there's the Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell, who's also publicly stated that extraterrestrials are real. Mitchell even went as far as to claim that the US government has knowledge of extraterrestrial life and has covered up its existence for decades. The most famous case comes from Apollo 11, with Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin allegedly seeing unidentified objects on the moon. There are rumors that Armstrong's comment during radio transmission about, quote, seeing something out there was a reference to an encounter with a UFO, though it was quickly brushed aside. So why would NASA, who are supposed to be the first to embrace and study new discoveries, suppress such groundbreaking encounters? If astronauts keep encountering UFOs in space, what are they really hiding from us? The Smithsonian Institution is one of the largest museums in the world, housing over 154 million objects. Among these, some argue are alien artifacts, items that have been hidden away from the public eye. These artifacts are said to be kept in secret vaults, guarded by some of the most powerful institutions in the world, including NASA and the US government. The theory is that alien technology, or possibly even full-on remains of aliens, are housed here. One famous example comes from the 70s Viking missions to Mars, where some insiders claim that NASA found evidence of alien structures. According to these claims, fragments of alien technology were retrieved and then stored in places like the Smithsonian to be studied, but have never been made available to the public, of course. Now, some say the government is hiding this data to avoid panic or to maintain control over such groundbreaking information. Along with these space-related artifacts, there are other theories about strange objects found on Earth. We may never know the full truth, but the Smithsonian's massive, inaccessible archives certainly make it seem like there could be more to the story. The Apollo 20 mission is one of the most controversial and debated conspiracies surrounding NASA. Officially, Apollo 17 in 1972 was the last manned mission to the moon, but for decades there's been this rumor that there was a secret mission launched in the mid-70s to retrieve alien technology from the moon, Apollo 20. According to the story, NASA discovered this massive, ancient spacecraft on the lunar surface in the Bay of Rainbows region, and the Apollo 20 crew was tasked with exploring it. The crew reportedly found two humanoid bodies inside the ship, one alive, the other deceased, along with advanced technology that was far beyond what humanity had at the time, or even now. A man named William Rutledge, who claims to have been part of the crew, gave some pretty detailed accounts of the mission and even shared alleged video footage of the lunar craft and one of the alien bodies inside it. NASA consistently denied any such mission took place though. But the Apollo 20 theory has a loyal following. Some argue that the mission was kept secret because the discovery was part of a larger program to study extraterrestrial technology. For what purpose? Who knows? One of the most bizarre and frustrating mysteries surrounding NASA's Apollo missions is the alleged lost tapes. These are the original analog recordings of the lunar landings, including the famous Apollo 11 mission, which are said to have been erased or taped over at some point in the 80s. You're probably thinking, well, how on earth could they throw away something so historically important? Well, NASA claims it was just for practical reasons. Those tapes were expensive, they were reused for other purposes, but some conspiracy theorists believe the real reason behind the lost tapes is far more sinister. The tapes contained pristine, high-resolution recordings of the Apollo missions, including the first steps on the moon. If they still existed, they would have been priceless artifacts of human history. Instead, only lower quality copies remain, and NASA's explanation for erasing them has definitely raised more questions than answers. Was there something else on those tapes? Maybe? There have always been whispers that something was filmed during the Apollo 11 mission, something NASA didn't want the public to see. But if the tapes were really lost by accident, why did it take so long for NASA to give a clear explanation of what happened?